Well, welcome to the innovation stage here at the Independent Hotel Show. My name's Hamish Kilburn. I'm the editor of Hotel Designs, which is the leading international hotel design website. We publish news, features, interviews, reviews, and in lockdown, a hell of a lot of virtual roundtables. And I hope you're all hungry, because this is the main course of the Independent Hotel Show, Destination Gastronomy. F&B in hotels has drastically evolved from the situation of simply sheltering a steak in an Italian restaurant. Do you all remember those days? Well, arguably it was the independent hotels that had the power to change that and take us out of that era, and because they didn't have to follow guidelines. But nothing could have prepared us for 2020. Unfortunately, it was the independent hotels that sadly suffered most during this time. You just had to look at the distressed assets that were on the scene to realise that. But after months of forced closure, which, let's face it, brought the hospitality industry to its knees for some time, F&B spaces were able to creep their doors open once more. And in doing so, I feel gastronomy took on a new role, which led to signs of recovery. We adapted, brand guidelines smudged. There's one hotelier that I spoke to who, before lockdown, had a sign that said "keep off the grass." Well, that's now removed, and instead there's a pop-up restaurant and bar, which is just wonderful. And it allowed us to flex our muscles in hospitality once more. Also during this time, conscious consumers who once demanded us to source locally became more empathetic, which allowed everyone to take more risks. We utilised our outdoor spaces, and we did what we could to engage local consumers, which ultimately fueled recovery. But where do we go from here, with Brexit and everything? So we've gathered a handful of the sector's top names to carefully explore this complex yet compelling part of hotel culture. So let's meet them. We have Dan Broad, co-founder of Beckford Arms. Hi Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. We also have Ewan Grant, who's general manager of the Wild Rabbit. Hi Ewan, how are you doing?
Great, good,
we should also have James Goulding, who's the group chef director at the Pig Hotels. If he joins us, we'll obviously just usher him onto the stage. And we were also meant to have Geeti Sin Watson, who is the owner of the Bull Inn in Totnes, but Geeti's unwell, so she's unable to be here. However, I know quite a lot about her hotel and her personally, so I'll try to make sure I inject her points in as we go. So let's start, shall we? Should we get the elephant out of the room first? COVID-19, Brexit.
I've not heard of it.
What are your main concerns at the moment with your hotels and your properties?
Well, I think particularly when it comes to food, the food side of things, it's obviously recruiting chefs. I mean, we were just talking before that there just aren't any chefs, and you know the government help for hotels in the lockdowns was actually incredibly generous. And okay, it's been a nightmare, but we've kind of all survived because of a massively generous scheme. But I think the negative sort of knock-on effect of all the furlough and stuff is it's really changed the attitudes of particularly younger staff, I think. And that's very, very tough when you're trying to put out very high quality food, both from the kitchen and front of house. I don't know if you agree with that.
Couldn't agree more, and we were just consoling each other with the same subject beforehand, that I think it's never been more important that we look after the people we have, and that we try and focus all of our efforts on something we've all known we should have been doing for years, which is developing those you have, and taking a raw ingredient, which is local kids, people with a little bit of a pet interest, and developing them into professionals, and changing the way we work in order to do so, because I think the mentality has changed over the past 18 months for sure. And you know, we all come from places that are food led, and we want to be proud of what we put on the plate, and the only way we can do that is by finding other people that share that pride.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really, really important point, because it doesn't really matter what food you want to do in your independent hotel or whatever it is. If you haven't got the staff who can make it, forget it. And I think there is this sea change, particularly in the kitchens, of money, I would say, is one of the things. Is there's a massive inflation in wages that's going to just carry on, I think, in order to continue to attract good people into the sector. And that's going to end up the price of a dish.
Both of your properties are pub-like settings.
Yeah.
When you were able to reopen once more, did you feel the love among the local community, and how important is it to engage the local community with any hotel, especially independents, I think.
I think what it taught all of us is the importance of innovation. So I think many of us found every way of serving food that didn't involve a plate for the first however many months of however many lockdowns. So that broke the cycle of just being about an a la carte or a tasting menu or whatnot. You found ways of connecting and engaging with your local population, which was takeaway pop-ups, serving tacos or food that might not necessarily be your natural domain, but finding a way of creating something that appealed to the wider audience and still gave them a taste of what you were renowned for. So really, for us, provenance and organic food's really important. So trying to find a way of putting something out that, let's face it, we then expect that we're going to get the odd TripAdvisor that says our takeaway was very expensive and overpriced. But at the same time, we wanted it to be true to what we did and give people a little taste to remind them what they were coming back to once we got to open again.
Yeah.
And it got everybody thinking outside the box. We were delighted to get it back to a table surface, but it really helped as part of a team. It was really innovative, and it gave people their little opportunity for ownership and coming up with something new that we normally wouldn't do. It wouldn't normally be our bag.
Yeah.
I mean, I think pubs with rooms, as opposed to just general independent hotels, have a massive advantage in that respect because they are the local pub as well as a destination. So you have a community that you serve, and you have people that are coming from far and wide, and you have room guests in the rooms that are eating there, right?
Yeah,
so that is a massive advantage when it came to recovering from COVID. I think with regards to the wider independent hotel sector, that's much harder. And in fact, the only hotel group I know that really does this really well is actually the Pig.
Yeah.
In that they are a genuinely local restaurant as well as the rooms above.
Yeah.
It's always been very hard for hotels to engage with their local community because they're primarily seen as for their guests in the rooms, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I touched upon distressed assets. It's something we absolutely cannot ignore. Independents are being snapped up by the bigger brands, and with that, other trends are sort of being followed elsewhere. Do you think it's do you think it's a struggle for independent hotels to keep on top of those trends, or to follow those trends, or to when it comes to menus and what to offer, without losing their personality?
Yeah, I really hope not. And I think we've been through. We've been through financial crises in the past, and my interpretation, and maybe it's blinkered, and maybe it's just in my head, is that coming out of it, people spend on quality. They still want quality. And hopefully what that means is that those that have their distinct offering and their reason for bringing brand loyalty or goodwill, whatever you want to call it, hopefully that allows you to capture a niche. I think we've never seen such a period of demand outweighing supply in terms of if I go down the high street right now, I can't go into a branded pub for a drink because it's got a fully booked sign. And hopefully what that does for the independent is allow us to focus on what we're great at and continue to look at ways of building on that and maintaining our brand identity. So yeah, maybe it's rose-tinted glasses, but more of the middle ground doesn't frighten me. I think it's really important that we stick true to what we have, and our challenge is having the people to deliver it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, I just don't think an independent should ever be following trends.
No.
I think that's the exact
Defeats
opposite of
the
what an independent should be doing.
Yeah.
I think chains can follow trends because they're engaged in trying to achieve a mass zeitgeist or something like that. Independence is about creating the trends,
Absolutely.
and the chains can follow us.
Yeah.
And I think exactly right. It's just about doing what you do really well and with integrity. And I think that word integrity is a really big word. It sounds like a Ponzi word, but it's a really big and important word.
I think you're right, and by doing that, by creating your own trends, you can then adapt so quickly when we come up to situations like this.
Do you know, if I'm honest, I feel like one of the mistakes we made, our business made in the first lockdown was trying to, and it was phrased in one of the initial questions for this panel, we tried a little bit to be all things to all men, and it wasn't us. It didn't feel natural, and we've just had a catch-up 18 months after it all started, or however long it is, to get us back to pre-pandemic, to remember what we were doing great and what our business plan was. Because I think there is always that feeling that you're making up for lost time and you have to, stack it or whatever it is. The truth of the matter is we have a business that allows the table space, and we didn't have to sacrifice so much. And there are times where I think maybe we made the mistake of joining that fight for, dare I say, and we do great pizzas, but having pizzas where we never had pizzas before, putting things on the menu that didn't feel like they were us. We did them really well, and we did them with our
what
produce.
I would say is that you had to adapt. You had to make a decision quickly, and it just had to.
Yeah,
hindsight's a wonderful
thing,
thing, but you did something to engage the local community, which is a plus.
None of us had been in that scenario before, and you look at it and you think, God, why did we do that? And then you look at it and you think, I don't think we made the wrong decision. We just wouldn't make it again.
That point about trying to appeal to everyone, that's where everybody goes wrong.
I agree. Yeah.
So the idea that you should have something for everyone is not a bad place to start, right? But actually, you don't appeal to everybody.
I do agree, but what I do think is that, that example that I gave earlier with that hotel, the keep off the grass sign being taken away for pop-up, that hotel would never have thought to do that before COVID. And what I'm interested in, is there been anything that you've learned since or adapted and actually thought, this could work moving forward? Within the menu or within the design? I don't know.
Do you know what? I've actually learnt the opposite. I actually think, I really do think, I think it's about sticking to what you did well before.
Yeah.
All the stuff of COVID, like QR codes and masks, and obviously all the stuff we've had to put up with, everybody's had to put up with. It's really about going back to what is a hospitable experience. And COVID, it was so awful for us because it represented the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we did learn is, I think, more space, less cramming together, and actually, I think, I don't know all these terminologies, but I think dwell time, I think, is the term. Give people stay longer, they spend more, they have a better time. Yeah. Everybody needs to just chill out, and I think that's what COVID did. People relaxed a bit more,
It's a really interesting point that you make, because also I think I come across everything from a design perspective, and for me, before, we've never really allowed design and service to work as closely as it's starting to work. I know there's still issues, but it's interesting. And with that, when we were able to open up and covers, we had to limit our covers. That's fine, but what I think is really interesting is I was speaking to someone during that time, and they said the average spend on the table went up. So what they were losing in regards to revenue from numbers, they made up in regards to quality. Do you think that's a lesson that hospitality?
I think if you're giving people a good time, right, you're doing something right. Yeah. Simple as that.
Look, there's a few things. This is a conversation just between the two of us. I've just remembered where we spoke before. It was it was for the initial screening for this, and we were talking. I think we hadn't reopened at the time, but we were talking about how all of us were prepared for people celebrating going out again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that was a big part of it. That you hadn't been out, you were excited. It's like a night out after you've had a child, I would imagine. And it's the first night out after a long time, and so everybody's maybe treating themselves and going above board. The other element, so we did things that I'm proud that we did. We maybe don't do them now because we're back to normal, and I'm proud of that as well, because that's identity. I think there was a danger that you got browbeaten into making decisions by that demand for guests wanting to come through the door, for people wanting to push the boundaries. And at the point where it sacrificed the quality of our offering, it was the wrong decision to make. What it did allow us to do was expand our wine offering, because it's an investment, it's not going down in value, and what we found was that people were splurging on something that they might not have otherwise gone for. It allowed us to focus on the cocktail element, because again, it was creating that little bit of a sense that that's how you started your evening. And average spend, everybody I've spoken to has said the same story of average spend going up. And you feel it because people are having to choose where they're going and plan months in advance. And that creates that sense of occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, it's like, when you split up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? It's like you miss them all when they're not there. And I think that was true in hospitality, whatever sector you're in. And people value the experience of it, and it's up to us as the operators to deliver on that, I think.
So you mentioned, obviously, people planning in advance to dine. That's a thing that happens. Has that changed? Are there any behaviours that have changed among consumers that are checking in and out of your hotel, using the F&B facilities? What are they demanding most?
So I think something else that we discussed previously was there was a rush with all the new technology, the QR codes, the booking platforms, whatever it was. I'm a technophobe with these things, so apologies for being totally
As I think we
mindless on it.
probably all are.
Again, at the point where it sacrificed that interaction, whether it be answering a phone call or greeting people face to face, it felt like a failure. It felt like we were sacrificing something that we've all worked really hard to conjure. I think the purpose of this panel was we're food-led entities that may have rooms, but the restaurant will always be the hub. It'll always be the social occasion. We're not about room service because honestly, the furniture isn't built for it. You wouldn't be comfortable. And we want you in our restaurant, in our pub. So I think there was tough decisions to be made in terms of bringing in technology that sacrificed a little bit of the hospitality or that personal interaction, which is hopefully what motivates the team.
Yeah.
You don't want people that look at screens all day.
For sure. And locally sourcing has been something that you guys have done for a long time. It's really integral, but what fascinating things have you discovered in your experience locally sourcing for your establishments that have really enhanced your hospitality offering?
I think the sort of whole locally sourced ingredients thing is a bit passé.
Okay.
In the you kind of expect it now, right? It used to be like a feature.
It's a hygiene
like as if
factor.
you're going to write locally sourced ingredients on your menu. I mean, of course you should bloody have locally sourced ingredients on your menu. I mean, I think all those things are now a given rather than a feature.
Yeah, I think you're
so
right.
I think it's just about doing more of the same and doing it well and finding the best local ingredients.
And I think from a business perspective, you engage with the local community, and then you find new things, and you find new, not just ingredients. I mean, but actually working with the people who are in your
the motivation
community.
for us is we can cherry pick the best. We have good relationships. We can cherry pick the best ingredients. I guess.
Yeah, same. I mean, if we didn't have locally sourced produce or seasonal produce on the menu, we're there to be shot at, and rightly so.
Yeah.
I think what's been encouraging for me is obviously we've got Dalesford Farm up the way, which is an amazing organic resource for us to have. Our staff have veg boxes that they can pick up once a week, and hearing the team talking about picking up their veg box, not knowing what's in it, and trying to create, offering from that's exciting. That excites me. What we put on the table for the guest, for me, it's just as important the team are excited by it as it is the guest.
Yeah.
Because that is the key to what we're aiming to do right now. It's to keep people in the industry and allow us to continue to put amazing food, drinks, service together. And right now it's a concern because we don't know where we'll be in 6 months in terms of the workforce.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think to go back to that question about what I've noticed is I've noticed that customers or guests are perhaps more demanding, like more focused and very knowledgeable. I mean, the days when you just served food to people and they went, oh, that's nice, that's all over. They know where those ingredients are coming from, and they, everybody's more educated now. So I think that raises the game a lot, right?
Yeah.
Still order avocado and toast.
Every time. Where do we go from here with the crisis with work staff? What conversations are you having? How are we going to recover from this?
I think
because
we
we've
need a
lost
DeLorean.
a vital part of the
We need a
the puzzle.
DeLorean that goes 88 miles an hour and goes back 20 years, and we need to start investing in the people we've got and realising that we can't just import and think that experience means good experience, because it doesn't. So I mean, it is a little disheartening when you see the kind of press about lorry drivers or fruit pickers and easing of restrictions there, because, you know, coming back from that first lockdown, people reevaluated and they realised that an 18-hour day isn't fun and it isn't sensible, and that if they reach for a calculator and work out their salary, you know, there's a problem. So we all have to take responsibility for that. But hopefully there's enough enthusiasts that we can try and garner that interest in. And, you know, I can see a scenario where everybody in our business is either an assistant manager or a sous chef or above, because CDPs don't exist and waiters don't appear to exist anymore. The only way we'll break that mold is if we tap into all of those things that we're doing that are second nature: seasonality, provenance of produce, and get people passionate about it. And the tough part is I'm not entirely sure where we start on that one, but it's by discussing it and finding out that everybody's got a good idea here, there, or the other, and how can we make it more approachable? Because talking about dining experience can sound intimidating. It's what we do every day. We have to eat and we have to drink. So how can we make that more approachable and something that we're all passionate about?
I mean, I actually think it's very profound what's going on. You know, this sort of, as you were saying, people coming back and thinking, you know what, I don't think this is a very good job, like working in a kitchen. I might be working in a great place like the Wild Rabbit, I might be learning stuff, but I don't see my friends or my family or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's a massive change that's going to happen. And I think what we are looking at, and I hope everybody sort of relates to this, is we're going to have to pay people more, right?
Yeah.
So we are looking at, like, instead of, let's say this is a minimum wage industry, like pot washer is on a minimum wage, instead of them being paid £9, £10 an hour, we want to guarantee to all our staff, we will say pay them £12 an hour, right? That is a massive, like I know the Pig, for instance, have just done this. They've guaranteed they don't pay anyone less than £10 an hour.
What I love about the Pig, so I live in Kent, and just down the road is the Pig, the Bridge Hotel, the hotel in Bridge, I should say. And I went there for my father's birthday, didn't tell anyone we were going there. And what I noticed was there were people working there that I knew from the pubs in Whitstable, which is where I grew up. And what was really nice is they loved working there, and they were working from an aspirational brand, going from sort of dead-end jobs really, which didn't really have much prospect, to working for a brand that they were so proud to work for.
But I think that's all very well, and we have that as well, and you probably have that as well.
But you can create that in your
but
mini
I think, but you still need to offer the right money, and also I suspect, are quite old school, right, in terms of our views. We work an 80-hour week, no problem at all.
Yeah.
The youth of today, I'm sounding like my dad.
That was the first mention of the youth of today.
are just not going to do that. They're just not going to do that, you know. So the other aspect, as well as paying people more, is to offer better working conditions. Say nobody works more than 45 hours a week. Nobody works more than 2 weekends a month.
Is that realistic, though,
well,
with the stress of a kitchen?
That's the question. It's definitely not realistic at the moment because there's not enough staff, right?
Exactly. It's catch-22.
But it's our aspiration, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're
But
trying
then
to
at the end
offer
of the
up.
day, you all want to create fantastic menus with amazing. So you need the skill. You need it's such a catch-22 at the moment as to where we go from here.
I think the conversation we're having never took place in North America, where I remember getting kicked out of a hotel at my 40 hours and 1 minute mark because your shift for the week's finished, and saying, but I've not finished and I need to do prep for tomorrow or it'll be bad. There was no conversation. Out you go, because it's a profession. It's treated as a profession, and the concern is we inflate salaries and rate of play, so we're actually paying too much for certain roles and not rewarding those that have had to work really hard to do it. And you know, I've had conversations recently where I'm speaking to one of my managers to explain to them why I can't pay them what they want to pay someone. I'll wrap up shortly.
No, sorry.
I can't pay them that amount because then the manager is the second best paid person in their department, and they're hiring, you know, somebody who's joining the workforce, and that concerns me. And it won't guarantee that person is going to last. It'll just mean that we've got them for 3 months if we look after them well. So,
are there any other countries that do it much better than us. Can we take? I mean, I think
Most.
of like, yeah, well,
I think
Start
it's-
with an atlas.
in
are there in
essence,
particular the examples that you've looked at?
Scandinavia.
well, I think
Scandinavia, of course.
well, they have a higher minimum wage. That's why
Well,
they do it better.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
by law, right?
But they study for it as well, you know.
I think that's it. I think it's that the industry needs to become professional. That's what it is, right? It's always like, you know, this like hospitality is always not a proper job or something
Yeah.
like that. And so the countries which take hospitality seriously, like France and Italy and Spain and whatever, I think they do better because it's a proper job. And still, I think in the UK, it isn't. And
Yeah.
that's what needs to change, probably.
Absolutely. I think the powers from above within those businesses need to realise that actually gastronomy's taken on a whole new role since lockdown. The people are wanting a good food and beverage experience when they're checking into a hotel. So the pay needs to be fair in those aspects in order to get the skill levels up.
Well, it's no
those
good
areas.
having beautiful bedrooms and a beautiful location and fantastic gardens
Yeah.
if you're going to have a crap meal, you know,
Yeah.
because you're going to have a bad experience.
Yeah,
I
for
suppose.
sure. I wanted to save some time for some questions because I know that it's obviously a topical area. So are there any questions from the audience? We've got a roaming microphone. Anyone? This lady? There's a microphone there.
Have you had to significantly reduce your menus to still maintain their quality? Obviously to avoid romanticizing having that fresh new plate of vegetables arrive every week?
Yeah, I mean, we did reduce our menus just practically to do a few, I always say, you know, to do a few things well is better than doing a lot of things averagely, you know, I suppose. I mean, to me, actually, I've always thought that the best restaurant would be you arrive and you just get food. There is actually no menu at all. That would be my dream, but there are vegetarians.
There's
so
a hotel that I'm working with at the moment that's opening next year, and it's going to allow, I mean, it's terrifying, it's going to allow every consumer to wear wearables, and it's going to monitor their levels and let them know nutritionally what they should and shouldn't
that
be
sounds
eating.
horrendous.
So well, I mean, you were asking for it.
True.
Maybe not for independence.
God, no, I'm not ready for that. So we did. I mean, we went down from having a restaurant offering and a bar offering to offering the restaurant menu throughout. So what our decision there was, let's give that higher level of quality throughout and maybe sacrifice that relaxed dining element. And it doesn't sit easy with me, but I think it was the right thing to do. People coming for a dining experience were still getting it. Those who wanted to drop in for one course, there was no pretense, you could still do it. But I think, you know, we knocked on the head the tasting menu, which again doesn't sit easy with me, but I would much rather more people are able to taste 3 courses than, you know, a finite number are able to taste 7.
I mean, I think when it comes to sort of the wider independent hotels, as opposed to just sort of poncy pubs, which is sort of what we are really, it's really important to have a thing, you know, like so.
Yeah.
With pubs, it's kind of easy because there's a sort of defined pastiche of good fish and chips, a pie, you know, there's things we expect, right? But I think with a hotel, I would say it's much harder, but pick one thing and do it really well, I would say is always a
with
good...
pubs, you've got that comfort food to almost fall back on, really, because you're creating that experience. It's difficult with independent hotels. Any other questions? Yes. We've got a microphone.
Too
Oh.
late.
No, we've got time.
Hi
We'll
there,
come to
thank
you.
you. I think one of the biggest problems we're going to hit is around everything that you're saying, and it's about public awareness and perception.
Yeah.
We get guests calling up the hotel, a small 20-bedroom country house hotel, and one of the first questions is, have you got staff? People know about lorry drivers, they know about fruit pickers, but people are starting to be aware of a lack of staff in the industry and a depletion and a reduction in the quality of what we're able to deliver.
Yeah.
And if we don't get on top of this from a PR perspective, it is going to hurt long term.
Yeah.
What do we do?
I mean, I review hotels for a living, and the hotels that I've been checking into recently, apart from a few exceptional hotels, they've got a huge issue. And, you know, but it comes down to staffing. I mean, it's a situation that it's the perfect storm, isn't it? We've come out of the pandemic, Brexit. It's the same with design as well when it comes to specifying.
I mean, I think I would answer that in a different way. Is I think this is like allowing the public behind the curtain too much. And really, the guests shouldn't see behind the curtain. If they see behind the curtain, then you're not coping, and the fact that you haven't got staff is not the guest's fault.
But I think
it's
the
our
modern
fault.
consumer's going to peek behind that curtain.
Maybe that's right. And
Do you know what?
that's right.
I 100% agree with you. I have had to say, for the first time in my life, in the past, let's say 3 months, it's due to staffing levels. And I've not said it easily, but it's picking up the phone to our regulars to explain to them why I really need them to actually book rather than text 15 minutes before they arrive.
Yeah.
Because we might not have a table for them. So I think it is really tough, but I think there is a little bit of public awareness, but it is the lorry driver analogy. If no one's driving the lorries that deliver our produce, certainly no one's there to carry the plates out or to wash them afterwards. So there is an awareness point, but I think if it gives us, and this is the selfish part, if it gives us that little bit of leeway that you walk into a busy environment and you make two decisions, you decide this is going to be a little bit chaotic, but they've got a smile on their face and I think I'm going to be all right, or they look like they don't want to be here and I'm going to just go somewhere else because I'm not ready for this experience. And it puts all the more pressure on us as operators to figure out how the hell we make it an enjoyable experience for our team first, and that's going to perpetuate that it's a guest experience. But we've all had to sacrifice on offering.
I would also say everyone in the world has been affected from the last year in some capacity or another. There is empathy out there, and from my perspective, when I'm checking in as a consumer, if I'm seeing someone being transparent to me as opposed to someone sort of hiding through excuses, then I'm much more lenient to sit there and understand, because we've all had to suffer in some way.
So again, I'm not proud of it, but as well as having to explain that we're short-staffed, I've also lost the rag at guests more often in the last 6 months than any other time for being totally living in a bubble and having people say, it sounds to me like you have a problem. No.
I mean, the answer is you have to not, like a lot of places have been very greedy in the summer because it's been very busy, and the answer is not to be greedy and to limit the guests you're having and serve a few people well rather than pack everyone in. It's just old school restaurant management, I think, probably. Yeah,
it's interesting what you're saying, because I'm hearing from some people that they're seeing a consumer that is empathetic, but actually perhaps not in certain aspects.
Look, it's
human beings,
there's a wide diaspora.
Absolutely,
so
I've also noticed that some people have been lovely and we're all in it together, but the complaints, and we don't get many complaints, but the complaints we've had have been much more violent than normal. People have been very super aggressive, and I've talked to a lot of people. Like some people,
First world
it's on a different level.
Yeah. And this lady had a question here. There's microphones coming.
I wanted to ask, restaurant and accommodation, from your point of view and after COVID, where do you see them going, converging or diverging?
Do you mean in regards to the importance and where to prioritize?
So I think it's a really interesting question, that, because like we started by saying, particularly where we come from, which is pubs with rooms, it's almost two different things, right? There are rooms and there's a pub. Our job is to make it a seamless thing for guests so that it's one whole continuous experience. But really, they're different skills. Running the rooms is a different thing to running, I think that's sort of what you mean. Running a restaurant is a different thing to running rooms.
Sorry, we'll just wait for the microphone.
She's got a speech.
I also meant, as an architect, when I did my thesis, an hotel was included, and I had to have a minimum number of rooms to have a restaurant justified economically. So from that point of view as well.
I think that's the most fun challenge I've had, coming through a restaurant side and the F&B side and learning the hotel operation. The most fun I've had is trying to figure out how I'd keep the restaurant open financially justifiably, because we were discussing beforehand, sooner or later we have to put prices up because our margins keep on getting tighter. Staff costs, food costs, all the rest of it. But you probably the biggest cliche in hospitality when you're training new staff is the breakfast experience. Everything else that happened up until the point people have breakfast before checkout is cut short if the poached eggs are rock hard or rubbery. So we need to provide the complete experience. We need to make it joined up, and staying at a great property should be all about dumping your bags and going down to the bar. That's what running a good pub's all about. The fact that you want to be by the fireplace and have a nice glass of something. So they're one and the same for me. Again, I'm blinkered, but I don't want to go somewhere which is just about a room and dinner, bed and breakfast package. I want to go somewhere that I'm excited about the menu, and again, there's more demand than ever, so we need to make sure that we're delivering on that, because people have spent a lot of money and waited a lot of time to come and see us, and the whole experience has to be complete, not just one element of it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Maybe one more? Yeah, just in time.
As it's here, we've got restaurants and one with rooms as well. We've just been approved to sponsor people from Europe to come over. We don't know the next stage now. We've got the yes from the government, but we haven't gone to how do we find people, and have you had any experience of done that, or have you gone down this road?
Have you looked at the so this goes back to the argument of skill levels. Have you looked at the criteria of what the job titles are? It's insulting, because it suggests anybody that doesn't have manager in the title isn't a qualified vocation. So, I wasn't offended when there was the sort of government mandate of what a skilled or unskilled worker was, because there was a degree of truth in it, but only because we can hire someone with no experience and no qualification. We can make them a great asset to our company, and we can get them to a point where they're indispensable, whether they're a pot wash, a housekeeper, a receptionist, or what have you. But the guidelines for what it would take to sponsor somebody to come in and work in our kitchens is laughable, because they have to have the title of manager. So we've looked at every possible facet for getting university students over, for forging links with other brands across the pond, and every time I look at it, it is maybe not cost prohibitive, because we'll probably spend it on agency fees in the next 12 months, but there is a complete lack of understanding of what it takes to deliver great hospitality in this country, and it's a bit depressing, because I would bring people from anywhere right now, so long as they want to learn and they want to grow with us.
I think I look at it completely the other way around, actually, is I just don't think that's a sustainable solution. I think the sustainable solution is domestic, and that can be a good short-term fix while there's a dearth of people, but ultimately, got to train up local people, got to make that work. I think that's the only thing that's really sustainable.
In all of these situations, are you speaking to your competitors a lot more? Are you actually having conversations when these situations arise? Because actually, if we're going to come to a solution, it's going to be with the people who are actually at the forefront of these challenges, coming up with a solution together. Or is it difficult?
I speak to anybody. I don't think it's a competitor. I don't think anyone's a competitor. I think we're just synonymous, right? Mm-hmm. Because we are, it's just choices for consumers, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think the industry's ever been very good at working cohesively as a movement, and I don't think it'll happen like that, to be honest.
We do talk, and the first conversation is, how's your kitchen? How many chefs have you got? But it's just that,
I think also social media has been a great tool that everyone can see what everyone's saying. There's the PR aspect to that as well, which is an argument against, but at least you all know what each other's points of views are on certain topics.
Yeah. We've got to work a wee bit harder to find the solution to it, though.
Yeah, true. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much, Ewan. Thank you so much.